Thanks, Jamie. And just quickly, while Sarah's getting mic'd up, I'll just acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land which we meet. I'd like to thank you all for joining us here this evening and celebrating Sarah and Grasslands. Thank you, Joe Clay, Greens MLA, for turning up, and Bren, Conservator, Flora and Fauna. But also thank you to FOG for co-hosting this, setting this up, a wonderful event. I will thank Sarah publicly and privately, more privately later on. When I arrived here, this role 18 months ago, I think in week 2 we had a biodiversity community forum, and which I co-chaired. And who was this? Sarah, eloquent, informed, intelligent, passionate. I go, oh my God, there's a power to deal with. And I haven't changed my opinion, and it's been a delight to be able to, in a very short period of my time compared to the 30 years she's been here, to hear of her expertise and have it shared with the group. So for me, this was a must to do this event. That's probably it for me. I'll let Sarah show what she's got. Thank you.
I am so humbled to, oh dear, to have you all here and to come along to this. Yes, I am passionate. I'm passionate about the environment. I'm passionate about people and people's roles in these things, and it's absolutely wonderful to sort of see that other people are as well, because I think what I'm going to be saying probably is all some of the things that everyone would say that's about themselves as well. So I'll see how you go. I'm going to have a slideshow coming on behind, and I'm just going to be speaking, so I'm not speaking to the slides. If you get bored with what I say, you can look at the slides, and if you get bored with what's on the slides and me, then you can just talk to each other a bit quietly. So I thank you very, very much for coming tonight, and I think we're really honouring grasslands and grassy woodlands and our ecosystems tonight as well. I thought I might update you. I'm not leaving Canberra yet because we haven't found somewhere to move to. But we are moving to Adelaide. I'm not quite sure when it'll be. It'll be when something turns up. My daughters are looking at a place this week for us and see what happens. But I don't think it's going to be quick, partly because we need some special equipment in the house, and it's not that easy just to move into an ordinary house. But so it'll happen, and I'll be around for a while. I'll put that on that side. I think that's easier. Actually, I'll bring this down a bit closer if I can. So what I want to do is, what I am doing though, is I am effectively retiring from my ecological work. It won't be total by any means, but I want to leave behind what has been really a job for the last, since I've retired from any paid work in about 2016, what's really been at least a half-time job since then, doing volunteer stuff, and I've just got to the stage where I think it's time to pass it on to other people, and other people will do it admirably and in their own way. So I'm going to just reflect really on what I've enjoyed most and what I think I've learnt from this. And again, I think some of this will be true to anybody. And one of that is that I think it's so important to think of nature not as being separate from us as individuals or members of society, but that we are part of that natural world. And for me, what it means is that the country is part of my being and my soul, and it nurtures me in immeasurable ways. What we have to recognise is that since the European invasion, uncountable changes have happened to our landscape, and it's society's responsibility to care for country if we're going to safeguard human survival, let alone anything else. And this is what I've always had in the back of my mind with everything that I've done. And I think that's what all of us here are also trying to do. The other point is that we've spent far too long in our history in Australia, meaning we non-Indigenous Australians, in ignoring the management and culture that's happened before. And until we properly learn and utilise and respect and integrate the traditional custodians into management and protection of the lands, we're not going to get terribly far. We've got to learn, we've got to be treading more lightly on the land, there's no doubt about it. So after that more serious note, I'm just going to go through some of the highlights and that I've had and the things that I think have meant the most to me. David talked about the 1991 conference on grasslands, and I was there as a having just started doing a graduate diploma, and I was listening to all this and I couldn't help but thinking all the way through some of it I've told you before, but I wanted all the time, I felt like I wanted to jump and say, I'll do it, I'll do it, I'll do it, I'll do it, Mimi, I'll do it. And I did. So I was very lucky because it's very exciting. It's been very, very, very exciting. And starting with some of the things again that David showed, which was the work by Alec Costin, and Jeff Pryor also did a lot of mapping as well in the ACT. So I started with the general mapping of where the sites were in the 1984 report that David was involved with, and finding those sites and then finding more was really the first thing that I was doing. So that was really pretty bloody exciting. We got the legislation through that was the first, the grasslands was the very first item to be listed as threatened in the ACT. So that was pretty exciting. The development of the recovery and the action plans, there's a photo of one of them there somewhere. Learning more about the history of the landscape, finding sites, undertaking surveys, mapping. In those days the mapping was done by hand. We had a big table. And mind you, at that stage in my early days, I was the first one to have, I was the only one first as a contracted person coming in to do it that had a computer. So I had the first computer in the area. Or there was one that everyone shared, but I had my computer. Understanding the patterns in the grasslands, and I tell you what, we still don't understand the patterns, so I've got to keep that in mind. Monitoring, communication, a lot of facilitating other research. That first grant that David mentioned was actually allowed a lot of other studies to be done as well, and it was fantastic doing that. Establishing FOG, of course, and the preparation of the grassland flora and woodland flora. But I think one of the things that was most important to me, just working with so many people, community, government, going to that first conference of that Sue mentioned in Victoria. There was a number of other conferences. I organised the next one in the ACT that was national, so people from all over Southeast and mostly Australia came to that. Some of the photos of some of the people were people down on their hands and knees in the usual typical grassland formation of bums up in the air, and getting to know so many people and learning so much from people from all areas of, it doesn't matter, they weren't all ecologists by any means, everyone has knowledge to share. I think that the management has been a really big issue, and touching on what Brett has said is, my first point that I wrote down was recognition that leaving alone grasslands was not an appropriate form of management. I want to sort of iterate there with what was being said before, is that it's really important to think of it as biomass management and what it doesn't mean. And I had quite a lot of thought in a site that I went to that was fairly non-weedy. Biomass was through the roof, it was just so thick and the themata was dying. But there were patches of native forbs in the patches where the themata had died. So my feeling is that the old session was, yes, grazing of kangaroos is enormous. I mean, it's phenomenal on the kangaroo grass, but is that those patches was a natural part of the ecosystem, but it was really the Now, the issue is, of course, that's where the weeds come in. We've got much better at facilitating restoration of habitat and diversity. Also mentioned about the scrape and sow, but we've got a long way to go there. In the general public recognition of the significance of grasslands, I think that people are better at understanding the intrinsic values. I have a friend who always says, "Oh, Sarah works with grasses," and I've never got it through her head that I don't really work very much with grasses, but I work with an awful lot of other things. So there's a long way to go, that's true. And I won't mention other things, but one thing I will mention is that the role of the grasslands, the woodlands in our well-being, I think that's not to be underestimated. Particularly during COVID, it was very clear that people needed to be out there in it. The most significant change that's happened and is happening right now, of course, is the off-reserve conservation areas and getting those areas incorporated into the conservation system and protected and managed adequately. So yes, it costs a lot of money and we know that, but I think the real win is that the planners recognise that they can save a lot of money by having these areas identified up front, and that has been acknowledged by some of the planners, so that's wonderful. The thing I think that's happened in the last few years that's really made this happen is a really strong collaborative open approach that is a top-down I was going to say ethic, culture that comes from in the environment area within the ACT government. I've been thrilled to see how much the community is consulted about things and trusted with information that may be confidential, and that we can move together towards these things. I'll make a comment about the what I call the biodiversity network that's likely to be called the conservation network, is that I first identified that in my very first work in 1991 as an important component that we needed to be looking at off-reserve conservation. So it has taken 35 years, but let's be patient. And very quickly, I think we need to recognise what I think is missing, which is a highly skilled team of land managers, contractors and volunteers that work in a strategic, coordinated, cost-efficient way to achieve measurable and defined outcomes. I think that is absolutely critical, that people take a great pride in what they're doing and know what they're doing and consult with each other. And very importantly, a change of attitude, that this is not my land or your land, it's our place, but it's only for a few fleeting years in each case. I want to thank a lot of people. I deliberately haven't mentioned names because I know that I would have left out a lot, and a lot of you are in this room and others aren't in this room. And firstly for Commonwealth Government, who's provided actually quite a lot of money over the 35 years for grassland and woodland conservation, and facilitated by the ACT government as well. Colleagues in ACT and interstate. Wally can't be here tonight. He's got, my condolences go to his family whose mother passed last night. So they're with family, of course. But Wally, his sister Karen and brother Tyrone, and in the past, who's also passed, is Auntie Agnes Shea, have taught me a lot, and they've shared me cultural knowledge, and they've put up with my questions, which I think half the time were inappropriate or too over the top, but they've still put up with it. And lastly, I want to thank this country for nurturing me and teaching me so much. And all of you here tonight, and all the people who have supported me for many, many years. Thank you.